Hi everyone and welcome to the video. Today I thought I would do a video about, well, a bit more lore-like, which is more than I usually do. At some point I'm kind of planning on maybe doing like leveling a character from the beginning. But man, I have so many characters, I've done it so many times, it's kind of boring at this point for me. But in any case, I thought today I would do more about the books that you can find in game. So I don't have all the books, that's for sure. I am not an avid book collector, although I do like reading books in real life. But so I do have some books though that I've collected over the couple years that I've been playing. And well, as you can see, I'm in a book setting here. I'm in the Athenium. What's it called? The Runic Athenium. And yeah, I've got a great setting for this video, the Runic Athenium. Great. This is basically the area that was introduced when the Bindings of Blood were introduced. So when Arbiter, when Liberator, when what's the rogue physician, and what's the other one? Cleric. What was the cleric one? The oh god, what's it called? Pirates or no. What is it? Oh my god. It starts with a C. Not Sentinel. Liberator, Ranger, Tempest. Uh oh my god. What is it called? I forgot. The support class, the support soul for clerics. That's the other one that was introduced in this Runic Athenium. I guess I don't have the book. I might have the wardrobe set though. The called Arbiter, Liberator, Oracle. There you go. It's not C. It starts with an O, but there is a C in there. Oracle. So these caves were given to you when you finished the questing in this area. So Bindings of Blood, which are basically this place, Achilleos, you've got what are the other ones? Oh, this is the middle. Greenscale and Lathis. Lathis I actually tried my guild, we tried once, but we failed spectacularly. I'm planning on maybe like getting some people together and doing these just for kicks and giggles. I did we never finished we did finish Achilleos. Yes, we did. I can show you. I can show you the achievements. So, I can show you from the beginning. We did Tuxilua, which is in the first like the mini boss before Greenscale. Uh, this is Tuxilua, Iragua. Iragua is in the Achilleos instance. It's the the mini boss before. Um, Greenscale, so we finished Greenscale. It was spectacular. Achilleos, so yeah, we finished Achilleos, Bind Achilleos, and Bindings of Blood. Leave at least one Wizened Stone Seer. What instance is that in? I don't remember. So Tuxilua, um, deal blah 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 or more to a certain enemy during the Binding of Greenscale. So I think that was the um whatever a fate you needed to deal blah 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 damage to this guy. Once Lord Greenscale takes flight during the Binding of Greenscale fight, do not allow him to land until he is below 25% health. Hang time! Once Lord Greenscale takes flight during the Binding of Greenscale fight, do not allow him to land until he is below 50% health. 5 Alarm Omelette. So this is the mini boss before Mailforge. Where is Mailforge in this? Oh, I think Mailforge. Hang on. Where is Melforge? Achilleos? That's nobody. Oh, there must be one here. Oh, okay, so Binding of Blood Melforge is here. Then you've got Lathis. And then you have Greenscale, and then you have... where is Melforge? There. Melforge. Is there another one? Oh, okay. So I'm guessing you were supposed to do Melforge first, but we never did. Well, I mean, we never did Melforge first. Anyways. Wait, no, we did. We did. We didn't do Melforge himself, but we did do Tuxilua. Not Tuxilua, Maxillian. Yeah. Anyways, so I'm going to read some books to you because that's what this video is about. Are you prepared? You are not prepared. Yes, you are. All right, so first book is a funny one, actually, because it says, all 5 circuits must be connected, but don't cross the streams. What is that referring to? That's right. It's referring to Ghostbusters. Asha Katari. So this is a journal. And she says, when I was young, I could never sit still. Zareth and I would run the halls of Caer Mathos, upsetting the trays that the maids were carrying and knocking over centuries-old suits of armor. My father was an advisor on southern matters to King Justir, and gave him counsel both magical and mundane. He lectured me sternly again and again on the fact that I was representing the Eth, and that I was teaching them we were just as wild as the Mythosians made us out to be. I didn't listen. That wasn't my way. Even if sometimes I wanted to be good, it was like I had a fire inside of me that wouldn't die. Aurum, my older sister, was everything I was not, and every time I acted up, my father asked me why I couldn't be more like her. Every time he yelled that at me, I wanted to be her even less. I didn't even want to go to Quicksilver College. Aurum was already there and was the college's star pupil. To this day, I believe they may have sent me away out of a wish to divide me from my close friend, Prince Zareth. We were still young, but gossip tongues were wagging about the Wild Earth girl and the prince. At Quicksilver, I did not want to fail, but I didn't want to be like Aurum either. So, I studied everything I was told not to. I tried any magical technique professors advised were too dangerous or unproven. This backfired more than once. I spent one semester with my hair growing back. I hit a bad case of mummy rot for a month before I finally reversed the effect. I was young and foolish, but I was also dangerously effective. They might have ignored my childish rebellion if all of my magic had failed. It was because I succeeded that I was expelled. It was because I succeeded that they feared me. Though I returned home, my father refused to speak to me, my mother seemed afraid of me, and my best friend had been sent to learn the way of a knight and squire in a distant land. There was nothing for me in Caer Mathos. That was when I joined the Dragon Slayer Covenant. It was with them that I would discover Regulus' sway over King Adraxus, and in trying to prevent the coming apocalypse, die and be reborn. All of these events, it seemed, were destiny. My destiny. A part of the great journey that took me to the end of the world and back. What this book doesn't say is that she and Elspeth were also in the same school at Quicksilver, and they were not really like mean rivals to each other, but they were rivals because they were both very good. And Elspeth resented the fact that Asha was slightly better at magic, at school in general. I and Asha Katari, if you'll remember, she is the leader of the Defiance, and she was sent back in time, just like us, just like the Defiant ascended, and I think she was playing with a lot of the Source Stone magic, and it backfired and got her scars on her skin, on the side of her body, so all along her trunk and on her arms too. So she's got Source Stone magic like flowing inside of her. So this book doesn't tell that, but I know that. I'm telling you guys because I'm nice. So, Dunbart's Guide to Telara, Fortune's Shore. So, Fortune's Shore is over here-ish. This is Fortune's Shore in Free March. So, Fortune's Shore was once one of the city-states of the Eth. It was settled, I think. Wait. And was a greater port. Though it was in time and ceded by Port Sion. Hang on, I might be wrong. Fortune's Shore. Is it? Is it here? Flat Yard. Sand. Oh, sorry, it is in Shimmer Sand. So Fortune's End is here, right? I guess, yeah, for some reason this is called Fortune's Shore in Shimmer Sands. And that's right, it is an Eth place. So Fortune's Shore was once one of the city-states of the Eth. It was settled by the Fortuna tribe and was the greatest port of the Eth Empire. Though it was in time unceded by Port Sion. Port Sion is uh, well, it's there. This is Port Sion, and it was never. I think at some point it was supposed to be a playable area, but then it was just turned into a war front, and now it's not even a war front anymore. I hope. I wish that they would do something with this area, with Port Sion, the map itself. I wish that for an expansion or a like a patch that they would bring us to Port Sion as either like a sliver to show us what it was like during the attack by Regulus's forces. So basically, Port Sion was attacked by Elsbeth and Regulus's forces, the forces of death, to like in the future, right? So before we were sent back in time. So it basically she tricked I think it was Zareth. She tricked Zareth and got a lot of the undead and the zombies and so on. She got she let them in, and basically Port Sion was turned into not the last stronghold of the human empire, but a wasteland. It was once a very, very strong, very secure place, but now it's not anymore, and it's like riddled with death magic and death forces. So that's why it was locked. It was locked away, and the only reason we went back into Port Sion was as quote unquote slivers. Each time we would go into the warfront, it was kind of like a sliver into the future to try to stem the forces and kill them, but we never quite succeeded. Anyways, though it was in time unseated by Port Sion as the primary point of trade for the continent, with the fall of said city, it has now resumed the primary port of the continent of Tyre. Much of its infrastructure was destroyed in the Magitech explosions of the Convocation. Like the rest of the empire, it was decimated. However, the port district was full of more traditional structures and was a vital enough location that effort was put toward rebuilding it. They're still talking about Fortune's Shore. Similarly, the Methodian Empire saw its value as a southern trading port and maintained it when they took control of the region. So basically, the Shimmer Sand in general is kind of a wasteland. Like it's a desert, and the only place that is vibrant, that has life, human life, human quote unquote, like um racial what do you call it? Like it has life by humanoids is Fortune's Shore. The other places that have some kind of life are like this green patch here. This has a bunch of dinosaur creatures, and this part here, which is basically like a geyser place. Yeah. And then, yeah, the rest of Shimmer Sand is not very, doesn't really have much life. And Flat Yard used to be like a bastion, a castle area where they had like a city inside of this place. but I think it was a mining city, if I remember correctly. I'm not sure. Page two. The Bami were pivotal to its rebuilding. Because of that, the port is peppered with many traditional Bami garu, open-air tent structures and colorful fabrics traditional to Bami life. Their open quality is said to be intended to invite in the ancestor spirits. It also allows the wind, which links them to their plane of air origins, to pass through their domiciles unabated. Though still an active and pivotal port, central to the sourcestone trade, sourcestone is very much at the forefront of everything in Mythosia. Even up to Ember Isle, like everybody's talking about sourcestone and trading and trading sourcestone and so on. Like sourcestone is um the main things you'll hear about in Mythosia when you're questing and stuff. Like they're always talking about sourcestone. It's their it's their currency basically. Um, it has become increasingly seedy in recent years. It is the site of many warring gangs, and there is little order keeping force. The Dragonslayer Covenant once filled this role, but since their focus has become focused wholly on the cults, they can't be keeping peace between Talarans anymore. Kasim Owen, a Bami of some renown, has made efforts to clean up the port. There's a mistake here. Typo. This effort is ongoing, however, and is meeting the violent resistance of the aforementioned gangs. If I remember correctly, you do see a lot of the Dragon Slayer Covenant is basically very active in Droughtlands, and that's where you meet a lot of the what do you call them? The humanoid dragons, basically. Uh, I don't remember what they're called, but anyways, so they're dragon. This is where the Dragon Slayer Covenant is. And then Casimo Owen, I think you do hear about him when you go to his Fortune Shore. Anywho, the burden of guilt. This is basically just a journal by the hand of Arnold Eldrom. Edrom, sorry. I think you do hear about him at some point when you quest. Everyone knows my name, my surname, that is. I share it with my brother, one of the leaders of the Endless Court. Yeah, that's why. Okay, so Edrom, you do hear about him when you encounter the Endless Court, basically in Free March. I wish I could say that he were the black sheep of the family, a lone traitor among a line of honorable men and women true to Telara, but I cannot. The Adram family has served the Destroyer faithfully for centuries, millennia even. When King Adraxis pierced the ward and Regulus began his return to Telara, my family emerged from the shadows to declare themselves as some of the first of his loyal followers. Uh, Basically alongside Alsbeth. I was dragged there with them, but it was not my wish to do so. I sensed my family's allegiances at a young age. I'd heard the rumors from the other young people at court about how you could tell in Endless. It was mostly silly stuff, children's stories of men and women with pale skin and a rotten smell. But there were other ideas that were a little more credible. It was said you could tell someone in the cult of the Destroyer because, though they would pretend to be devout, they would never look at a statue of one of the members of the Vigil straight on, as if they were afraid they would attract the gaze of the gods. I noticed it about my father first. He was the worst at hiding it. Every time we attended a congregation, he would shuffle faithfully along with everyone, but I noticed he would never look at the statues completely. His eyes would travel that way and cut out before they could reach their destination. I only noticed later, too late, that my mother did as well. She was good at it. Her eyes would nearly reach the stern gaze of Thedior, but at the last possible fraction of a second, they ducked away like a frightened hare into the moors. I had begun to watch my father, taking note of his general comings and goings. He always had excuses for where he was going, but often enough, they just didn't line up. He would claim to be meeting with his serfs, but I would later hear that all petitions had been turned away for the day. At night, he would often go out for his walks. Time to reflect, he called it, swearing he was staying within our gardens. But his shoes would come back spotted with the raw earth of the woods and not the well tilled soil of the gardens. When I say I figured out my mother's allegiances too late, it was because I went to her with my suspicions. One night, after my father had gone out, I told her I thought he had been acting odd, and described to her what I had seen. She looked at me then, appraising me, and finally said, "Come with me, Arnold." That night she took me to the woods, donning cloaks that hid our features. I thought perhaps we were going to spy on my father, but when we marched into a grove in which moonlight pooled like water, I was surprised to find us surrounded by figures as heavily cloaked as ourselves. My mother pulled me into the circle, and it was then I heard my father's voice saying, "What have you done? Is he ready?" My mother responded, "He has figured out too much already. He has to be. If he isn't, we will have to deal with it." I remember how she held my arm as a man came to the center of the circle, carrying a young woman who looked like she was sleeping. What followed, I will not repeat, but her screams haunt my dreams still. I learned my birthright that night. As the oldest of my siblings, I was expected to carry on my family's secret rites to the Regulus, working with the other families of the Endless Court to herald his return. It was never said that what would happen if I refused, but I saw other heirs brought to the circle, friends I had known all my life from the court of Mathos, who would later die under mysterious circumstances. I can only surmise that they refused to carry on the torch. Coward that I am, I went along with them. It was only when the ward finally broke and the actuality of Regulus's return was on us that I finally ran. I ran as far as I could go, and I only came back years later to help fight with the Order of Mathos against my own father and mother, brother and sisters. So you see, it would have been me to bear the title of Lord Adrom. When my father and mother were killed fighting the Order, however, my brother succeeded them, being content to continue their dark works. Now he is the undead visage of the Death Lord, leading hordes within the endless citadel. Oh shit, so his brother is the one who Regulus like went into. Woo! With all that said, how can you trust in a drum? Most can't. I'm watched constantly, expected to reveal my true colors at any moment. It is all I can do to shove aside the doubts and remind my fellows that I have nothing left of my family's lands and privileges. All I carry is their blackened name and the burden of guilt that it brings with it. That's that's a really heavy journal there. That's a heavy book. Man, I never read it. I actually never really read any of these books, but it's great to be able to read them now and like to tell you guys what I know and to discover things that I didn't know. Like this bit, like oh hell, the brother. Shit. So, the crossing. Um oh, okay. I think the crossing is when the Eth crossed back into Mythosia because Ember Isle was like taken over by Achilleos, if I remember correctly. I'm not sure, but we'll find out. We lost so many in the crossing. Every day, more ships sank, tossed around like children's toys by the furious waves generated by the Lord of the Abyss. This is Achilleos. The last days in the Isles, though, were worse. Everything we knew, everything we had built, was turning against us, and what was worse, our own people had turned against us as well. Humans say that the only surprising part about a Kellari stabbing you is in the back is that you didn't see it coming. But for all you can say about us, widespread betrayal by more than half our population is not something anyone expects. Ours was a world of wonders, of flying carriages lofted by spirits into the high spires of our great temples, and lights that never died, fueled by the deepest essences of the world. This was an Ember Isle. It was glorious, and then it was gone. As the spirits became bloated with profane power, and our people turned to worshipping their dark hungers. So we fled into whatever boats we could find or build. Less than half survived the crossing to the Free March. My own boat. Jesus Christ. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but there's a ambulance outside. Okay. So less than a half survived the crossing to the Free March. My own boat went down when we were only days from the Green Marches. We could see the mountains in the distance through the fog. And then there was nothing but darkness and the sensation of my chest exploding. But then I woke up in a machine, my body stitched together with source where I should have blood. Returned, a synthetic mirror of the spirit gods I had left behind. I will make the crossing back one day, as an ascended, and take back our lost isles from those who tarnish them. So he is talking about this is Zember Isle, right? And so the Kalari who lived there, their spirits became profane because of Melforge and Lathus. So like those two dragons who were trapped inside of the volcano here. They began to their forces began to seep outside and through the land and to the spirit gods that basically were the source of power in Ember Isle. So then the people began crossing over to Free March here. And a lot of them died because of Achilleos, who was somewhere in the ocean here. And that is scary as fuck, right? Yes. The royal record of Hammernell. So Hammernell is I'm in Moonshade Highlands, so it's very, very close. This is Hammernell. Hammernell Fortress. It is an amazing place, and back when I was level 60 and the level 50 instance of Hammernell was still activated. This was before level 65 when they replaced the level 50 version with the level 65. So now you cannot go into the level 50 anymore. You have to do the level 65. And it sucks because I used to farm the shit out of this instance. Anyways, so this is Hammernell. Pages from the Royal Archive of Hammernell by the hand of Rune King Molinar, who is one of the bosses in Hammernell. Fifth day of the seventh moon in 1489th year of the ward. I have given the order to destroy the wheel. I wrote it in the stone of the entry so that none among the rune guard might question my edict. The doors of Hammernall were designed only to be opened with its assistance. They were cut from the mountain itself, the halls tunneled out around them, and never designed to be moved by the power of any living being. Without it, we will be trapped inside, but the horrors we brought into this world will be trapped with us. For our sins, many of our people have died. More will be lost, and it is my place to stay with them. I have sent Dolan, his son, to lead the people out. As he lives, so will the line of Molinar. May he lead the dwarves to more wise and prosperous times than I was able. Sixth day of the seventh moon in 1489th year of the ward. It is our first day in the dark. Dolan, the foolish boy, stayed inside with me. He still believes we can win, that somehow we will destroy all of the demons in Hammernell and return her to her glory. Always a brave lad, but never the brightest, my Dolan. We have made our stand in the throne room. Yeah, that's where they are in the raid. Pursued to its doors by the hound Murdantix, that's the first boss. We managed to trap him with some of our surviving rune bindings. They also hold the door closed, keeping access to us from that direction closed. If I had my will, I would never rely on another rune binding. They are a slight to Baralt, though I only realized that too late. But we have no choice. We have no other weapons to fight these things. Ninth day of the seventh moon in 1489th year of the ward. One by one, our numbers drop. Teams of fighters are sent to clear out pockets of monsters, but it's rare that they return at their full number. Sometimes they don't return at all. Everyone who stayed was prepared for such sacrifices, however. We will do no good for Terlara staying in this room. Our only purpose left is to thin out their numbers in the event that someday people find a way to open those doors and try to retake the city. If they do, I hope they bring an army. Nothing less can stand against everything within these walls. 12th day of the 7th moon in 1489th year of the ward. We are down to the last of our soldiers. Dolan remains beside me, and only now will I acknowledge how much I have taken comfort in his presence. Part of me is ashamed that I have come to peace with it, because it will mean the death of my son and the end of my family line. Another part of me, the part that shrinks at the echoes of dark wailing in the halls around us, is glad he is here, and that we sometimes find comfort in speaking of better times. He reminded me of a picnic we had when he was young on the terraces of the Runa Garden, of the food we ate and the mead we drank, and how the sun shone that day. We were happy then. It is easy to forget those times. 14th day of the 7th moon in 1489th year of the ward. This will likely be my last record. My head has been clouded for days. I blamed hunger and thirst and fear and all of the obvious things. I only now recognize that something has been creeping up inside of me. I only see it because the same darkness has taken Dolan. He is no longer the same young man who stayed behind with me. Rude, loud, brutish, he stomps around yelling at what's left of our guard and tearing his nails against the walls. I would not bleh, admonish him for it, if not for the fact that every ounce of self control I have learned in my life is all that keeps me from acting the same way. Every whisper, every breath, they grate at me, making me feel like yelling and gnashing my teeth. I don't know what darkness it is that takes us, but it is coming relentlessly. If anyone ever reads this record, please remember us as we were, and recognize that we did not go willingly. We were taken. For Hammernell, for the Dwarven people, for Baralt, I am Rune King Molinar. These are the last of my words. May Talara be in a safer place the day they are discovered. So he is talking about how Achilleos, the Lord of the Deep, that I talked about during the crossing in this book. So Achilleos was locked inside of Hammernell, and the dwarven people in Hammernell Fortress were basically keeping it imprisoned, and somehow Achilleos like started to whisper and to take over the fortress by manipulation, by whispering, by breathing everywhere. So he was everywhere in Hammernell because his cult, I forget their name, but his cult basically took over Hammernell and started to release um, whatever part of Achilleos through the walls. It's nuts, but yes, Hammernell Fortress was one of the best raids ever. That and Infernal Dawn 2. The Soul Stream. So the Soul Stream, I forget where this instance is, but if I remember correctly, where is it? No, no. Where is it? Um, Soul Stream would be in a death place, right? So here? No, that's Greenscale. Where is it? Soul Stream. Where is it? Darkening Deeps. Realm of the Fae. Where's the Soul Stream, man? Nope. Iron Tomb. What? Where is it? No. Holy shit. But it was a level 50 raid, so where the fuck is it? Oh. Gloomwood? What the hell? Where is this instance entrance? The fuck? Okay, I see. So it's basically it's not one of these icons. It should be one of these, I suppose. Oh my god, so that's gonna take forever to hunt for. Um, Edgewood, Belmont, Ravenna, Burlingham, Caerthalos, Twisted Hollow, Kingsgate, Hillsborough, Bloodgrove, Caircolum. Oh shit, I don't remember where it is. Well, In any case, it's a raid, okay? This appears to be a log written by Elsbeth. So many of my plots have been foiled by the Ascended. They drive back my armies and destroy the vessel for Master Regulus. I cannot fail again, or I am certainly done for. All of my power, all that I am, is from him, Regulus. And if he takes it away, I will be worse than nothing. So Elspeth was one of the basically she was part of the first raid, if I remember correctly. The first raid in Vanilla. And I can't for the life of me fucking find it, the entrance. No, it's definitely not in Freemarch, if I remember correctly. It's like shit. It's probably in Stillmore, but I can't even find the entrance there. Um I don't remember. Anyways. Page 2. Fortunately, I have brought the endless court here, to the edge of the plane of death and within reaching distance of the soul stream. Though Master Regulus may have control of the plane of death, the souls of the fallen have eluded him his control. The plane of death represents the energy of physical death and its relationship with physical life, but souls are unfortunately not physical. They are something different entirely, and when they detach themselves from life, they enter the soul stream, traveling for who knows how long and to what end. It's a question for philosophers, not for me. So basically, she's talking about the soul stream, which is basically kind of like the in between. If you would, if you would make a kind of connection between what we think of when we think of death, so it's kind of the in between because they're like streaming towards wherever they end up later. So I think, in my opinion, the soul stream is basically where the souls are chosen for rebirth. So rebirth into like another person, or like it's a metaphysical place where things are um are taken for reconstitution. That's what I think. But it's a question for philosophers, not for me. Fortunately, because of the relationship between souls and life and death, the soul stream edges along both the planes of life and death. This has always meant that there was some connection, some pathway to be found and exploited. Scouring the holy records of Talara, I found a story, a myth of a man who had traveled to the plane of death and then to the soul stream to find someone he had loved. He succeeded. Oh, it's kind of like that Greek mythology, Persephone. The guy, is it Persephone? Anyways, the guy who went back into hell and tried to get his girlfriend out, but then he looked back and then they were both lost. I forget what he's called. I forget what she's called. But it's basically kind of like that myth that I find. He succeeded, according to the story, and by retracing his journey, I found the vital artery. Unfortunately for him, his love could not tolerate the land of the living and became a tormented spectre. Too bad for him. This discovery has bought me a little more time to please Master Regulus, a little more time to save my own soul from the void of his maw. I have already found him some incredibly juicy morsels. One of them was Platonus. So this was one of the bosses in the River of Souls instance, the architect, and he is helping me develop a cipher so that in the future I only pull out souls of his quality. Our headquarters are littered with the stink of the useless undead. If we waste time pulling out another farmer, I swear I'm going to choke someone. We are on our way, though. On our way, on our way. I must do this and please Regulus. I can't fail. I simply cannot. So, yes, Plutonus. Man, I forgot about him, but he's basically oh shit, I have his headpiece actually. Let me find it. What does it look like again? Platonus. Can I search this? This. So, this is basically the head of Platonus. It's beautiful. Not really. But let's go back to books. 12th century sanctuary guard letter. Mother, I don't even know where this 12th Sanctuary Guard is. My regiment is on the march once again. We have advanced into Scarlet Gorge, and some of Marshal Kane's officers have been leading assaults deep into the Defiant holdings there. I have not seen any combat myself, having been detailed to guard duty of our particulum here in Crimson Wash. So Scarlet Gorge is over here, and Crimson Wash is over here. And there are death forces here, if I remember correctly. I am glad I was able to transfer from the 8th Guard into the 12th. Marshal Oakheart is a good and noble man, but Marshal Kane knows what Sanctum needs right now as a crusading champion. Someone to take the fight onto Defiant soil. We are lucky. Oh no! So there's no death magic. It's basically it's kind of like a Defiant versus Guardian. I guess you could call it like a gauntlet. So if you go near Crimson Wash, you're gonna find yourself in front of Guardians if you're a Defiant. We are lucky to count such a mighty warrior as he among the ranks of the faithful. Jules Ernley. A history of the Eth. So the Eth are the Sourstone magicians, I guess you could say. The Eth are a tribe of humans who adapted to the harsh southern deserts by becoming master survivalists and taming their environment through magic. During the Bloodstorm Wars, this inquisitive and fiercely scholarly race discovered a means to harness Sourstone as a fuel for eldritch war machines. After the construction of the ward and the return of peace to Talara, these proto-technologies saw application in all areas of life. Yet, the Vigils soon demanded that Sourstone technology be abandoned. Though it meant being cast from the god's sight, the people of Eth refused. In spite of the Vigil, they further conquered their environment and built an empire of conglomerated city-states ruled by brilliant sorcerer kings. The power and influence of the Eth spread throughout Telara, fueled by the wonders of Sourstone. Unfortunately, their technology fell into the clutches of insidious dragon cultists, and the Eth Empire fell soon thereafter. Rather than risk the Bloodstorm's release, the Eth buried their wonders in the sand and destroyed all record of their forbidden techniques. Though reduced once again into a nomadic life by the desert, the Eth persevered, using magic to find new ways to adapt. They continue to value scholarly dedication and inventive approaches to problems old and new. Following the fall of their empire, many Eths sought asylum with their longtime allies, the Bami. Others spread through the verdant lands of Mythosia. Though taken in as scholars and court magicians, the Eth were generally distrusted by the more pious races. So, the Eth were, if I remember correctly, they basically took over here and here in Shimmer Sand. So in Droughtlands and in Shimmer Sand. That is where the Eth Empire was. But yes, they fell because of their source magic. And if I remember correctly, the Eth were also the people who brought on our travel to the Nightmare Tide to Gabora Reef and Dromheim and so on. So a bunch of people traveled a long time ago to the plane of water, to Gaboro, to Dromheim, and so on, Tarkin Glacier. So they traveled there a long time ago, and then recently, last expansion, we traveled there too and found that a lot of people had fallen because of the plane of water's influence. I'm losing my voice here. A prison for a dragon. The personal records of Amunet the Stormcaller. So, this was one of the first Stormcallers. So, we near the end of our journey. We have backed Lorne Greenscale into his den, where he is no doubt preparing to make his stand. As the only one in our party who understands the arcane arts, it has fallen on me to understand how we will imprison him. We are not powerful enough to hope to destroy him, but we should be able to bind him. I can't say I relish this task, but it should pose an interesting puzzle. Just how do you trap something so powerful? I know that parties of men and women are engaged fighting the other members of the Bloodstorm all over Tilara, but we had yet to meet any other such groups. However, last night we had occasion to run into a party that has been tracking Crucia. Those with tougher constitutions had a drinking contest of our party versus theirs. I declined to participate, as did their mage, Phineas. He is a pale, sickly northern type, but he does play with fire, meaning he has some backbone, and it was good to speak with an intellectual peer. We discussed the issue of the dragons, how to bind such powerful creatures, and then it came to us. The dragons feed on a specific elemental energy. If we could block that elemental energy with a casement made of an opposed elemental energy, we could perhaps weaken them enough to keep them held in place. The excitement of this realization only lasted for so long. After all, what we had proposed was essentially creating a prison large enough for a dragon, using elementally attuned source stone. No less than a king's ransom worth. Gods, a king, a queen, and the entire royal court. Still, we have a goal, a quest, if you will. There are more details to work out. How will all of that source stone come together? How should we configure them in the ritual for the most effective binding? Our parties cannot afford the time to travel together, so we will be working on this independently and sharing what we discover with messengers. There is much to be done, but I feel ready to face it. My studies took a dark turn today. Greedscale channels the plane of life, so I need to use Shadestone to bind him. It became clear to me that being so close to so much Shadestone, I will not be able to avoid being touched by it. In order to open up Greenscale to its touch, I will be opening myself up as well. I am numb right now, but I can feel dread creeping up on me. I don't know what the exact consequences will be, but I will be cursed in some way. I began on this journey knowing that I would have to sacrifice. I was prepared for my life to be forfeit, but knowing I might be cursing myself for eternity, well, now that's a little bit more than I prepared for. I have to think about this. I'm not sure anymore that I can go through with it. We will raid the Den of Greenscale in the morning. My last few days have been difficult, but I believe I'm ready for this. A team of Mathosian soldiers will haul the Shadestone in behind us. As the rest distract him, I will position them around the room and begin the binding, opening up both myself and Greenscale to its touch. I wrote Phineas to tell him what I had discovered, and to say that what might be goodbye. I was surprised to find how difficult that was. My initial impressions of him were unfair, and we've grown closer in our letters. I could not tell everyone in my party what I learned, but I had to let them know that if I become a wicked thing, they know to kill me. I told Diana and left it to her to tell the others. I can't stand the pitying looks they give me. Whatever happens today, it will all be over soon. I'm ready, I think. So, actually, I think for this I have to show you uh where it is. Greenscale. When you enter this instance, okay, it's good that I'm here. It's good that I was in that library, because the people that I was talking about in that journal are this. So this was Amunet the Stormcaller. What happens is, if you pick up at war, you can use all of these people as buffs. And so there were like five people, right? One, two, three, four, five. So there were five people that you could get, that one person could get each person, sorry, five people in the raid would get a buff from one of these people. So Amunet would give you the buff to use the power to freeze lesser enemies for a short period of time. Will you warn me when it is needed? So this person, Amunet, was a Stormcaller, right? And so he's basically the one I was talking about in that book, in that journal. And what happens is, in the Greenscale fight, which you can't see Greenscale right now. Damn. But anyway, so when this opens up, you see Greenscale, and during the Greenscale fight, there's a hell of a lot of mobs that come out at one point. And Amunet, whenever the person that would have the Amunet buff would basically click their buff, and those mobs would would be stunned. So they would basically be immobile, and so the people who were tasked with AoEing them down would basically have an easier time to do it. Right. So that's that. Let's get out of here. And so the other people in here were Diana, Thorvin, Durns, and Navir. So each person would do. I can use my power to shield us from harm for a short period of time. So basically, when there's a lot of the AOE damage that comes towards the raid, you could ask Diana to shield people, to shield the raid. Durns, my true shot can find the weakness in even the hardest armor without enough time. Will he help me spot targets for me? So I think this was when what was it? I can't remember, but I think it was towards the Draconeth of Fate. You would um you would use Durns to cut through his shield. If I remember correctly, I might be wrong. Thorvin. The god of battle favors us, even if the odds do not. His blessing will in turn cleanse any affliction upon us. So when there's a lot of cleansing to do, like for all the raid, you would use Thorvin to cleanse the raid. And then, Del, the Beastmaster. Navir and I can share in our battle fury, increasing damage dealt for a short period of time. So it's basically like a Beastmaster where you've got the what's it called? I forget. Let's see. Beastmaster. Where is it? No, not Huntmaster. But it does look like that. Primal Call? No. Ah, there we go. Enrage! It's like an Enrage. So you could use Del to put out more damage towards the boss. Anywho, let's go back to books. And let's go back to the books. Prison for a Dragon, abandoned. They're gone. They left me. I was running to the landing when I saw the boats pull away from the docks and make for the open sea. The entire way down, I was shouting and screaming, but they didn't hear me. Or if they did, I was ignored. I shouldn't have taken so long to leave the house, but I had so much I wanted to hide away for when we come back. Things I couldn't stand for the wanton to get their ashy paws on. Still, I told people I would be there. Why couldn't they just wait a little longer? Why? I've been stowed away in my home, hiding whenever looters come. Watching all of my careful work taken apart has been a lesson in humility. So many of the hiding places I thought were just so clever have been emptied out. I watched them cart away family heirlooms and essential supplies, unable to do anything about it lest I be discovered. Even the contents of my pack, the few things I thought would stay with me, are gone. The looters came so quickly today I could barely hide anything. Most of my food was taken. Why am I here? What am I waiting for? For our people to raise an army and come back? When will that happen? How long will I have to hide? These questions all plague me. I don't have much to do but sit around and think about why I'm still here, why I'm still scraping at what's left of my life. For all questions may overflow, answers are in short supply, just like food and hope. A strange thing happened today. I heard someone coming for the door and took to my hiding place, clutching a knife I have managed to hold onto through the looting. Footsteps padded gently into the house, and when I peered out, I realized I recognized the face. Her name was Elisaya. We had been friends until she joined with Karis in his Galari. Elisaya gazed around the room and then shook her head sadly, sighing and saying, "Poor Arcadius." Her sympathy surprised me. I was almost out of food, and my rising hunger told me I needed a friend. I decided I had too little to lose and everything to gain in hailing her, so I did, and though at first she was shocked, she greeted me warmly. After leaving to return with meal, we talked. At the end, she tried to convince me to leave my home and to join up with her. Though I resisted, I told her I would consider it. When I told her that, I thought I was lying, but now, alone in the dark, I am beginning to think I was telling the truth. So this is basically an Amber Isle story. When the Kalari left to go to Free March, right? So a bunch of people were still stranded, and this was one of them. And I think Elisaya was part of a cult of the cult of fire or something like that. I think I'm not sure. All right, this is a soul story. Acacia Zardonis. Only those who deal in the shadows know the name of Clan Zardonis. For ages, the clan's ruthless regime of physical training produced the finest murderers and cutthroats. Their teachings shunned the arcane arts as weak and unreliable, but one young upstart would prove them wrong. Acacia was the finest disciple of her generation, and mastered the art of the veiled blade at a young age. Yearning for more power, she studied the arcane in secret, experimenting in the shadows and growing more lethal with every passing season. For almost a decade, the young woman ruthlessly enforced her clan's will by night, poring over eldritch tomes in the dim light of dawn. In the winter of her 22nd year, Clan Zardonis took a contract to ruin a family of wealthy Mythosian traders. Such a large endeavor required the clan to dispatch many of its finest killers, Acacia included, on a midnight raid on the traders' compound. The clan did not realize its folly until the assault was well underway, for they faced not fat merchants, but the mages of the abyssal cult, and within moments found themselves tightly bound in chains of planar energy. Of course, the Abyssal did not expect a foe with knowledge so similar to their own, and were completely unprepared when Acacia slipped from the shadows, cold flame dancing on her daggers. A whirlwind of fire and steel, she moved through the cultists, her blades piercing magical wards and flesh alike. With Sorry. With the spell of binding broken, the assassins of Clan Zardonis were free to exact their revenge, and by dawn not a single cultist remained among the living. Saved from the brink of annihilation, the assassins embraced Acacia's power and made it their own. Over the decades to come, Clan Zardonis flourished, spreading their teachings to a new generation of rogues, who became known as Masters of Shadow and Flame. So this was the one of the what do you call it? Like introductions to the new souls that were introduced. So one of them was Nightblade. This was during Nightmare Tide, if I remember correctly. Okay, next. Amardis Mathos, Paladin. When the chieftain of Clan Mathos united the scattered Northmen to fight the Bloodstorm Wars, he entrusted the safety of the land and people to his daughter, Amardis. But Talara's landscape and weather patterns shifted dramatically during the wars, as planar energy confused the world's ecology. Crops withered, game grew scarce, and famine gripped Clan Mathos, until southern merchants brought an enticing proposition. If the traders were allowed to mine source stone from caverns on Clanland, the Northmen would have all the food they required. Weak to the well fed merchants' temptations, the people cried out for Amardis to accept the offer. But the young leader felt ill at ease about the bargain, so she entered the caves to commune with Thedior. She finished praying and opened her eyes, and before her lay her father's shield, newly affixed with a pulsing piece of source stone. A voice spoke to Mardis. Take it, daughter, and reveal the truth. The next morning, as people gathered around the stranger's carts, Amardis came forward, girded for battle. Without warning, she sent the caravan master sprawling with a backhand blow from the holy shield. Gold coins stamped with the glowing marks of Lathis tumbled from his robe, and the clansmen realized they had nearly turned over their holy caverns to agents of the Golden Maw. Amardis led the charge as Clan Mathos took up arms to drive out the cultists, intercepting blows meant for others and drawing the enemy away from weaker clan members. People would later report that a glowing aura surrounded her, crackling as she downed the dragon's agents with devastating blows from her sword and shield. All seemed lost when one of the caravan's Cyclops guard dealt Amardis a devastating blow to the chest with his serrated blade. In a haze of pain, she struggled back to her feet, pressing her hand to the wound. Golden light seeped from her hand and closed the gash, and this miracle caught the Cyclops off guard. Amardis cleft his hideous head from his shoulders, breaking the golden maw offensive in a single stroke. The Methosians drove the remaining cultists into the mountains. Though they claimed the food and other goods from the caravans, Amardis insisted they melt down the gold to forge an altar to Therior. This monument would one day stand in the heart of Caer Mathos, the home of many Methosian paladins for centuries to come. Uh, Annal of Echihard Valnir. I don't know this guy. I think I do, but Echihard is part of one of the spells for clerics, if I remember correctly. I think it's a druid or shaman spell. Echihard was a bear of a man, and even into his twilight years, when age had turned his beard as white and fine as snowdrifts, he was the last of the Valnir clan to fall when members of the Storm Legion swept through Ironpine Peak. His enormous maul toppled many of Crucia's finest, but in the end they managed to topple the mountainous man. Before the captured mass of Northmen, their commander blinded Echihard with a hot poker, and he was then chained with the rest of the surviving warriors to be marched towards Crucia's chamber for assimilation. Despite his blindness, it was Echihard who preached faith in Therior on the long death march toward the Temple of Crucia. One night, when he had roused the Northmen to a particularly passionate fervor, the commander dragged him out of line, stripping him of all but few loose furs and beating him savagely. When they finished, Echihard was left for dead in the snow. But Echihard was not defeated. He found the strength to limp along the roadway, following along the ruts left by their wagons. Just as his body began to fail, limbs turning solid with the cold, he cried out, "Therior, avenge my people! Grant me your strength, and I will crush the corrupted hordes of Crucia!" With that, the cold in his limbs deepened drastically, as if, yeah, it's a shaman thing, as if every vein had frozen all at once. To his surprise, he felt completely at ease, all pain vanishing, as if that very cold were lending him the strength to continue. He could feel the winds flowing around him, guiding him through the dark toward where the party had camped for the night. His first stop was the wagon where his maul had been stowed. He hoisted it up, thrilling at the familiar heft, and felt elemental lightning flowing out from his fingers into its shaft. Echihard moved confidently through the night toward where the prisoners were kept. He could hear the guards laughing over the fate of the bedraggled Northmen, and directed his fury toward the sound of their chatter. They had no time to react as this charge propelled the mole into the first guard. As it impacted against the man's skull, currents of lightning ran through the guard, causing his body to spasm violently before going still. Echihard was prepared as the second guard rushed him, surrounding her in a flurry of ice and snow. Both Echihard and the guard vanished from the sight of the watching prisoners as a violent storm surrounded them. The woman came back into view only once Echihard knocked her with such thunderous force that it tossed her out of the flurry and into a cliff face with a sickening crunch. The snow settled back on the ground, and Echihard stood before the amazed prisoners. He hoisted the mole high and cried out, "Praise Therior!" The members of the Storm Legion quickly fell to the valiance of Echihard and the freed Northmen, and from then on, shaman of the North tribes drove back the bloodstorm with the bitter cold and fury of the wind. Alright, I'm going to take a break, so I will continue in a future video, and as you can see, I have a lot of books. So it shall be a lot of lore to find out from yours truly. I will talk to you later and have fun.